Welcome everybody to the IMCanadaConnect presentation for today. This one is going to be our last one for this year. Start again in September. So a couple of things, just wanted to thank all the ARMA Canada liaison group. That would be chapter presidents and program people and everything that are on our liaison group that helped form this IMCanadaConnect bunch of sessions. Thank you for all your support, and hopefully we'll have our meeting in sometime in July, and we'll get a chance to think about what we want to do for the program for next year, starting in September. And hopefully somebody will step up to the mark there, one of the chapters, to do the first September presentation. I would also say that I will be at the Toronto conference. If any of you, just look me up. If you're going to be at the Toronto conference, look forward to talking, just enjoying some ability to sit down and have maybe a glass of wine or something at the conference. That'll be really great. Today we have Hubert Kozinski, and Hubert is with the City of Brantford and the chapter president for the Southwestern Ontario chapter. And this is their contribution for the IMCanadaConnect program. So also just to quickly introduce Troy Sawyer as well, who many of you know from all the other presentations we've done over the year. Troy kind of looks after things and sets things up and makes sure it's all being looked after through the course of our IMCanadaConnect presentations. At the end of this presentation, the recorded presentation and the slide deck will be posted as always on the Western IM website for you to refer to if you choose to do that, or have other people view the presentation. Thanks very much again, and I'll just let Hubert kind of introduce himself now. Hubert?
Hello, everybody. I'm Hubert Kozinski, and like Rick said, I work for the City of Brantford in Records Department. For the past 13 months, I was the supervisor of records, mail duplicating, and FOI services. The purpose of my presentation is a couple of years ago, we were moving locations. So City Hall was moving to a new location, and two other facilities were also moving to the same location. So we had a major cleanup to do. So I developed this presentation and I performed it to all the city staff, and hopefully you get something out of it as well. If you're doing big cleanups, this is a good way to start. It's very simple. Yeah, so the purpose of this plan is for disposing transitory and non-records into inform staff members of what records are and what they're used for, and what official records to keep until the retention period. And what records are transitory records, also known as working records, that can be disposed of. And lastly, what can be done with non-records. This will assist staff in properly cleaning out their work area, physical files, common areas in anticipation of a relocation. So my first approach, well, the title of my presentation is called Proper Framework for Documents and Data Information, Puff Daddy. This is a part 2. My part 1 was Proper Document Disposition, P. Diddy. So play on words there. So the agenda, we're going to do a little recap of P. Diddy. We're going to look at Bylaw 99-2018. It's a bylaw here at the City of Brantford. We're going to look at what questions to ask yourself when you're looking at official records, what questions to ask yourself when you're looking at transitory records. We're going to look at the common areas, some useful tips, what to do with the broken or no longer needed equipment, email cleanup, drive cleanup, and naming conventions. Those are just a couple of topics at the end to start thinking of the next steps after a cleanup and going to an electronic records management. So there has to be a lot of prep work before you get started on this. I do use a Gantt chart just to follow along and just to make sure I'm on track. I developed 6 phases. The first one is research and outreach. The second one, develop reference materials. The third one is to prepare the PowerPoint and handouts. Fourth step is do some testing and beta testing. Step 5, finalization, and step 6, implementation. So proper document PDD recap. So we have a bylaw at the City of Brantford. My supervisor, Pamela Lupa, did an amazing job outlining what a record is, what a transitory record is. And a transitory record by our standards means a record including email. Oh, sorry, just gotta go back. Including email, voicemail, or text message having only temporary value and which is not required to meet statutory obligation, set policy, establish guidelines or procedures, certify a transaction, become a receipt, or provide evidence of legal, financial, operational, or other decisions for the city, including a record that is a duplicate created for convenience. So in our bylaw, if you sort out your records and you find transitory records, those don't have a retention period and can be disposed of right away. And if you have an official record, then we create it and record all the information for that. So what is an official record? Official record is recorded information that provides evidence of the corporation's business activities, rights, obligations, or responsibilities, and or was created, received, distributed, or maintained by the city for these purposes. So here are some questions that your staff can ask themselves if they're looking at whether or not it's an official record. So does the material support a financial or legal claim or a business decision? Is the material required to operate city programs or provide program support? Does the material contain administrative, legal, or fiscal value? Was the material mandated by a statute or regulation? Does the document assist me in support or justifying my decision or action? Does the material document facilitate actions, formulation of policy and procedures, directives, or board committee staff meeting minutes? Does the material have historical, informational, or evidential value? And does the material support financial operating procedures or policy process? So if you answer yes to any of these questions, you have an official record and you should be documenting that. Now, working or transitory records. Again, it's a record that has temporary usefulness and is only required for the completion of a routine action and the preparation of another record. So these are some of the questions that staff should ask themselves when they're looking at records. Is the document a convenience copy used only for reference? Is the document unrelated to city business? Is the document unsolicited advertising information, maybe a magazine sitting on a corner of your desk or a newsletter? Was the document required solely for preparing another official record? This can come into budgets. You know, when you have an official budget you submit to council, all the prep work that you need for that, keep it around until you're asked questions, but those are transitory records, so you can get rid of those right away. Is a document a copy of a record without any annotations from significant input? Is the document a miscellaneous notice or memorandum of a minor administrative value? Does the document hold insignificant or no value in documenting the city's transactions? Is the document a duplicate copy of a document such as a memorandum report retained only for distribution or convenience? Is the document a publication? This is a handout that I also provided when I did my presentation. It's a two-sided handout with the same questions, same definitions, and it's something that the staff members can take back with them when they're working at their desk. We do like to have all our records sent to the storage record center because they are accessible and they don't need to stick around in filing cabinets forever. So, common areas. What do we hear about common areas? What are the common areas in my department? What is my ownership? Whose job is it to clean this up? I don't have time to clean up. I'm just going to go back to my desk and keep working on my current projects and avoid the situation. Things will work themselves out. These are all valid concerns, questions, and thoughts. But if you have these questions, there's always somebody that has an answer to them. Some useful tips. When you have seasonal items around your office, you should keep those at a very minimum or none at all. I know a lot of times we have holiday decorations or birthday decorations. Go through those cabinets where you store all that stuff and get rid of what you can. You don't need to keep all that stuff. Supplies, only order supplies you need and try to deplete what you have now, or maybe share your supplies with another department if you have an abundance of those. In-house retention files. We had a department here. The finance department would like to keep 7 years worth of records on site. So if you're required to keep files of a certain number of years, send the previous years to the record center, or try not to keep more than 2 years of files on site and send everything else off site. City produced books and maps. You can scan in books or sections from books that you need. Be aware of copyright issues for non-city produced books. Once you have a PDF, it's easy to search through those documents using Control F, then flipping through the pages. Personal items. Continue limiting your personal items in your workspace. Keep it to a 1 banker's box or less and take everything else home. Training and reference materials. Throw out what you don't need and scan the rest and save to the network for easy reference. So those are just some useful tips. What to do with the no longer needed or broken equipment. At the City of Brantford, we do have a disposal of surplus policy. So if we have stuff that we need to dispose of, we need to look at maybe another department can use this equipment or these products. If not, the purchasing department will advertise these on Gov Deals and try to sell them. Once you have gone through above, and the last resort is just to pitch it. At the City Hall, we have a large green garbage bin where we can just throw things in, but make sure you're aware of any policies or procedures you have in disposing any equipment that the company has purchased. So some stats. When I first did this cleanup in 2017, I brought in some shredding consoles, which can hold up to 240 liters, and then some big gray bins as well that can hold up to 360 liters. Why they calculate it in liters, I don't know, but that's a good way of maybe measuring the volume. So from 2017 to 2018, we got rid of 107 of the shred bins. From 2018 to 2019, when I did the presentation again, we got rid of 315 bins of shredding. Again, with the large totes, from 2017 to 2018, we didn't fill up any of those. But in 2018, when we really had to gear up and start cleaning our office spaces, we were able to dispose of 30 or 43 of those bins. So from 2017 to 2018, we disposed of 46,000 liters of paper. So how much paper do you think we disposed of from 2018 to 2019 after I did this presentation? 116,000 liters of paper we got rid of just by going to our desk and knowing what's a transitory record and what is an official record. Also, part of my presentation, I prepared this poster of what can go into a shred bin. Not all companies are the same. We use Norfolk Disposal. They're a small company in our area. We're allowed 10% of mixed media in our shredding. So some of the items they don't like are binders, the hanging folders with the metal in them, any multimedia such as CDs or videos, and they don't like cardboard. But what we can put in the shred bins are those large clips, metal clips, books, magazines, paper clips, and the plastic binding combs. We're allowed to put those in as well. So this was another great example of something I prepared for the presentation that I posted by the shred bin, so people knew what they can get rid of and quickly. Especially those binding combs. People, when they rip them out, they hurt their hands. So it was good to hear that people can put those in the shred bin. Emails. So there is a two-step email cleanup that I do once a year. It takes about 5 to 15 minutes. It won't solve all your problems, but it'll get you started on helping you clean up your emails. So the first step is delete your deleted. Right click on the folder, press empty the folder, say yes. Your deleted folder, you put items in there because you've already looked at them and you know you don't need them. So your deleted folder should be only items that you know for sure aren't any records and have no holdings. So delete your deleted. That folder should always be empty. You should not have any records in there. If you do, move them out and file them properly. The second step is called cleanup folders. So what this does is it looks at all the emails in a certain folder, and if it finds duplicates or a conversation that is already in a larger email, it'll delete that. So it's good to have your deleted folder empty, because anything that this will clean up will go into that deleted folder. And how to do this is you right click on the folder that you want to clean up, select the cleanup folder option, select it again, and press OK. And then you'll notice the number of items that are in that folder have been reduced. So make sure you do this with all your folders. And it's a good tool to start cleaning up. Network drives. Cleaning up your network drives. I have some tips and useful tricks here. You need to clean up all your folders before you can start organizing them. So take a look at your retention policy and see what you can get rid of. Don't have a personal folder. If so, go through it and clean it up. No official documents should be in your personal folder. So here at the city, I don't have a folder called Hubert Kozinski, and I store all my files there because who knows what might happen to me. My position will still exist, but maybe I won't be in this role. So I shouldn't be keeping any of that stuff. I have a folder called Corporate Records Duplicating Clerk, and whoever takes on my role after me will take over that folder. There's a lot of times that you have a folder called Bob, and that folder will sit there for years. We have folders here with people's names on them, and nobody wants to go through those. They just want to start fresh. So make sure you don't have any personal folders and just put them by your position. Step 3, do an inventory of what you have. Go to properties and take a look how much storage space you're using before you start cleaning up. And after you do a massive cleanup, go to the properties again and see how much storage space you have cleaned up. Those are good KPIs to maybe show your managers, to show you that, you know, it's always good to get rid of stuff, because if you don't, all that stuff gets backed up with IT over and over again. And it's just taking up space. And as we all know, space costs money. So whatever you can clean up, please do. Step 4, you can create a Z folder, a location where you can house documents that you know you need to keep, but don't know where to put them yet. So when you're cleaning up your folders and you have something that just doesn't fit anywhere, put it in that Z folder. Once you're done your cleanup, then you can go into your Z folder and see where things might fit, or maybe create something new. Do any of the folders belong to a certain group of staff in your department? Determine who's responsible for what. In my organization, I belong to the clerks department, and in clerks, we have legislative support, we have licensing, we have records, and then we have mail duplicating and FOI services. So 5 little subcategories that are part of clerk services. So we all share the same drive. So there's certain folders that belong to certain people. So have those people go through those folders and you just do what you're responsible for. Step 6, find duplicates and delete all but one. Use shortcuts to put the same document into another folder. That way, you're always working out of the same document, and the same document is not stored in 3 or 4 different locations. I noticed a problem that we have here is letterhead. Letterhead is stored in multiple folders where it could be just stored in one folder called templates, and then you have a shortcut to that. Step 7, establish naming conventions. I'll go into a little bit of details and some tips and tricks, I believe, in the next slide about those, but start thinking about naming conventions and how you should name your files and being consistent. If your department deals in projects, put all documents related to the same projects together. This includes emails. So your email should never be a repository of records. You should always move those into the folder that the project belongs to. Just in case we deal with freedom of information requests, that information is all stored in one location, and we don't have to go to 4 or 5 different individuals and interrupt their day and, hey, do you have this information? Do you have that information? Make sure all your information is stored all together. If you move email out of your Outlook to your devices, delete it from your email. So after you have moved it into a folder, you don't need to keep that email in your emails, so you can delete it. And the last step is do not go more than 4 folder levels deep. Sometimes we go folder, 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 and then the last folder is a new folder and there's nothing in it. So make sure don't go past 4 folders deep. If you have to, that's okay, but try not to, because you're just diving deep into your records, and it doesn't need to be that complicated. So when you're looking at naming conventions, what system do you have in place now for naming documents or folders? Do you have something in place? Does another department have something in place that maybe you can mimic? Do whatever works for you. When adding a date to a document, nearly always do year, month, day. Again, whatever your preference is, be it, but make sure everybody across the whole corporation is the same. There's a lot of times I don't know what is the month and what is the day because they're so similar. So everybody needs to be consistent. So make sure you propose that. Again, folders should be by position and not by a person's name. Again, that just keeps it from having a folder named Bob sitting there forever and nobody's going to be looking after it. No new folder. Name your folder with a consistent and clear name. Also, try not to do asterisks or 1 and then the folder name, just so it's at the top. Start the discussions with your managers as to what works, and then all managers should meet and agree on one format in each department. Or you can mimic your drive folders to the record series on Versatile. And Versatile is a program that we use for managing our records. So how we have ours set up is we'll have a folder name and then we'll have the classification code beside it. We know what the retention period is for that classification code, and anything past that date can be deleted. Or you can, we also use Tom Rims here. So you can use the Tom Rims classification codes to start out with, and then that way, you know, everything in those folders has a retention period. Do you guys have any questions?
Thanks, Hubert. Yeah, if people would like to submit questions through the Q&A in Zoom, or you can do it in chat as well, and I can bring those up as they come in. And I think, Rick, do you want to start off?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions, Hubert, for sure.
Okay.
So, how did the staff take to all of this? I mean, like we've been involved in records and information management for almost 30 years now, and often it's the users that cause us, the most kind of pain along the way. A lot of them don't want to do it. Did you have great success in bringing all the users kind of along with the process?
Yes, so I did a little trick on the staff members here. I scheduled the meeting for an hour and a half. My presentation's only half an hour long. So because I had them for an hour and a half, they were mine for an hour and a half. So I was able to have an hour with them to go back to their desk and just start going through a shelf and start getting rid of stuff. Once they got that feel, hey, this is good. I'm cleaning up a lot of stuff. I can get rid of stuff. I have the support person right beside me looking at what I'm getting rid of. I'm there for support and any questions. So yeah, you got to trick them a little bit. They're very, they like to hold on to everything they have because they think it's important. But once you give them all the information, make them feel comfortable, and then go with them to their desk and make them clean off maybe the corner of their desk where they have magazines. Start going through their cupboards with them, being, do you need this? And they're like, well, maybe not. I'm like, can you scan it into the system? Can we get it out of the shelf? That kind of stuff. So you have to use time wisely. And a lot of people don't have the time to do this cleanup. But if you reserve it and you know that they are yours for that hour, you can go back with them and help them do that cleanup.
We have another question, but I just wanted to follow up there, Hubert, and ask about your management support for this process as well. I mean, I recognize that you were moving locations, and I'm sure management was happy that things were going to be a little less to move than before. But did you have like city manager? Did anybody come out to start with and say, okay, we're going to do this cleanup, and Hubert's going to come visit you and that kind of thing? Was there anything like that done?
Yeah, so the discussion started with my supervisor going to the senior leadership team, letting them know about what we are going to do to help people organize their offices or clean them up a little bit, because moving costs money. The more totes you have, the more money you're going to spend. So they were very happy to hear that we were able to save them money by reducing the amount of stuff that we have to carry over. That was their buy-in. So it started out that way. The second step was we sent out a mass email, informing staff that this is going to be happening in the next month or two. And then once the invitations started coming out, people were accepting them. They participated. So we got a lot. People want to clean up their offices. They just don't have the time or the patience.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Appreciate that.
So somebody just missed the beginning of the presentation. Do you just want to explain the acronyms you have again? The PDD and yeah.
Okay, so this presentation is called Proper Framework for Documents and, sorry, I have to go back probably.
Put the first slide up again.
Almost there.
I must say, I like your slide deck, Hubert.
Very colorful. That's another thing with my supervisor. She lets me just go wild on these things, and I just play around with the program and add all of the stuff to it. So this presentation is called Proper Framework for Documents and Data Information. So Puff Daddy. This was a part 2. My first part was called Proper Document Disposition, P. Diddy.
Good. There's no other question, but I can ask a couple as well. Just to kind of go back to the beginning, when you did the initial kind of cleanup of stuff, when you're trying to look for some of that transitory information in terms of what can just go without kind of a retention policy or our records policies being brought into play. Did you find that difficult to explain? Again, going back to what Rick was talking about, the users understanding what's going on. how much power are you giving people to do that kind of, hey, you're just welcome to throw out anything you think is transitory. I know you had that one document that you kind of passed around. And to follow up with that, if there was disposition of transitory stuff, a lot of times we do want to keep an inventory of what was destroyed. Was there any kind of considerations of, keeping inventory of destroyed objects or records to begin with?
No, that's a good question. And that goes back to you give the staff members the information, but they are still uncertain of what they can get rid of. A lot of the times what they have in their offices is duplicates. So council meetings, agreements, invoices. So our agreements and our contracts are recorded by our clerks department. So if you have a contract or an agreement, you send it to clerks, they create the record. So what you have is a duplicate. Invoices and anything to do with accounting will create those records. So a lot of people would keep a duplicate copy of an invoice for about a year or two, create a record. So now they're creating a record and finance is creating a record. So a lot of the times, if you're not finance, you were able to get rid of all your invoices because finance creates those records.
Mhm.
What was that third one that I used? Clerks, finance, there was another one. But there's a lot of departments that are responsible for creating these records that people weren't aware of. So they were just creating records as well, so their department would have it. But a lot of the times it's the invoices, the accounting stuff, the agreements and contracts, the council minutes, and agendas. If other departments are creating those records, they didn't need to. And that was a big push because a lot of those departments, like social services or building or bylaw or facilities, they would keep these records as well, thinking that they needed to keep them to create records, but they didn't because another department was doing it. So we did prepare a spreadsheet of what documents get prepared by what department. So that helped them along, knowing, hey, I have this council agenda, but I know clerks has prepared it. They prepared the record. I don't need this anymore.
Yep. There's a question here. Again, a lot of stuff around how you get users on board with this stuff. Did you have any pushback from staff on the folder levels? Is there any monitoring or follow-up that you do on managing the electronic folder structures?
So what I started doing with staff members is one-on-one. I schedule an hour a week for 6 weeks. So there's 6 sessions that I schedule with a person that is most familiar with their network drive. And we start cleaning it up, going folder by folder and seeing what they can get rid of. And a lot of the times, when it is 5 or 6 levels deep, we are pushing a lot of those records up because we are cleaning up a lot.
So you find a system, you find an SME, a subject matter expert from the department. Hubert, is that what you do? And
yeah,
and then work through it with them first of all.
Yes, with those network drives, yes.
Okay.
And it works amazing. Like I was just working with the mayor's office, and they have pictures and videos of openings and business openings and all that stuff that are 20 years old. So I just told them, pick the best picture out of this whole folder. A lot of those pictures don't even have names. They're called Doc 1, Doc 2. So they don't even know that they even exist unless we're going through those folders. So it was nice to go through them on a one-on-one basis and see what they need. And a lot of the stuff they don't need. And especially with videos, a lot of the videos were frames and parts of videos that made up a bigger video. So we got rid of all that kind of stuff. A lot of people don't know what's in the network drives until you actually start going folder by folder.
Mm-hmm. Right. Very true.
Okay, just to kind of go to the next step of this. So a lot of what we've been talking about is how we do that initial cleanup. Just to move on, kind of, I know a lot of the people in the webinar are kind of in the records management space. So now that we've kind of done some of the cleanup, how was it to start putting things like retention policy to your records? Was it, I know a lot of this cleanup was in the physical realm. What we see a lot of too when we're doing physical records cleanup is that we often come across other things other than a contract, other than a paper record. How do you manage that in terms of kind of policies and the records management and retention schedules? And were there other things other than documents that fell into kind of a records management area?
Good question. Hopefully I can answer it for you. We have a very robust retention policy already in place. All our departments have records agents because they're not record coordinators. I reserve that title for people that actually manage records on a daily basis. So we have records agents. These are subject matter professionals in their area that probably do records once a year. So we have a very robust system called Versatile where all our policies are there. And we also have other tools on CityNet, which is another area where we store information that has those policies in place. But a lot of the times, the departments here know what the documents are that they're dealing with, and they probably don't know how long to keep them. But once they start entering that information into our system and putting the proper dates and having that retention automatically populate on those documents.
That's kind of a good segue into what I was going to ask next. It was the idea, okay, that we've got these documents and these records. What are some of the policies and procedures that came out of this cleanup that you might not have been doing before you started the cleanup? You talked about the records champions, how those documents are handled. Was there anything like that that was kind of new, unexpected, or more on the procedures and side of things?
No, I don't think anything new came out of this. People were just happy that they could get rid of stuff, and knowing that they can get rid of stuff. Having a records coordinator like myself be beside them that first day gives them those hard questions. I have this document, do I need to keep it or not? So it's good to have like an actual records coordinator with those people once they're disposing the records, just so they can bounce off the idea, do I need to keep this or not? A lot of times they know what they need to keep, but again, those one-offs where they're like, I don't know whether or not to keep it. Best case scenario is create a record and it'll show up on a destruction list, and then we can get rid of it properly that way. So
yeah, no, that's good. I was just going to kind of ask in terms of how you move some of this. Was there any large movement, whether it was physical or electronic? I mean, you talked about stuff that went to offsite storage. Was there also stuff maybe from the SharePoint or the shared drives that were going into other systems? How much was of the movement that was happening around this cleanup?
There was a lot of movement, a lot of records going into our record center. Like I said, our finance department liked to keep 7 years worth of records on site. Just in case there was an audit, they had those records on hand. But we were able to talk them into only having a year. So it was big having all those records go to our record center, and it freed up a lot of space, which they don't have anymore. So there was a lot of movement that way. And with the network drives, again, freeing up a lot of space and knowing where documents are and having it organized is really good, because then when you're looking for something, you're not going through 4 or 5 different folders trying to look for something. It's, instead of having 30 folders, you're maybe down to 15 folders, which is a lot simpler and easier to work with.
Just wanted to say I like the terminology agent. I like that term agent for instead of coordinator. I do like that.
Yeah, because
somebody referred to it as at the Saskatchewan ARMA conference as a champion as well, was another one I liked. Yeah, agent champion. I like those.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and these are our go-to people whenever we're doing anything. We get those guys involved first so they can start talking to other staff members of what's going on, what's in the future of records. Once a year, we meet with them and we present everything we have, from privacy breaches to the simplest stuff like how to create a record, and maybe stuff that's being missed or what we can do better.
Actually, that's kind of the question we just asked was, do the agents have any specific training? So it's once a year you meet with them and then you kind of go through what you just said. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do they report back to you? Do they report back to records management, Hubert, or do they? I mean, they still work for the department. And one of the things I've often seen in the past is those particular individuals, whatever we call them, they're working for the department, and oftentimes they were siphoned off by the manager to do things like build slide decks and all kinds of tasks that had nothing to do with records management whatsoever, kind of executive assistant kind of roles. But have you had that kind of experience with it as well? And do they report back to you in any way, shape, or form about things, how things are going? Is that?
No. So these records agents, they belong to the department that they belong to. Every department here is responsible for their own records. We just facilitate and help them manage those records.
Right.
So every department here is responsible for their own records. We just provide them with the training and the tools that they need to succeed in making sure those records are kept for the retention period. Yeah. But a lot of questions that they do have, they always come back to us.
Well, that's good. Yeah, that's
we're always open door policy. We're a great resource for people, especially with searching for records. A lot of the times it's all subjective how the person entered that document or that description in, right? So,
right.
So getting us on board is sometimes helpful because we have different ways of searching for stuff. Sometimes it's the simpler the search that you do, the better, because sometimes the more results is better, because then you're looking for that needle in a haystack, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Actually, in terms of finding stuff, you did mention during the presentation a little bit about scanning. I know a lot of times when we're doing cleanup, especially in the physical side, the idea of just scan everything comes up, just the idea of the scan on demand. How much did actually get scanned? Was it on site? Was it small enough that you were just doing like in-office multifunction devices, or were there any ships off to scanning companies?
We do have a major scanning project on the go right now with our maps and our GIS system. That's a big project. Our next step would be scanning building permits, because they're all physical records right now. But there was a lot of training manuals that people scanned in. And a lot of the times people have a drawer with manuals for machines.
Mm-hmm.
And I told them, go online, see if that manual is online. Because if it's online, you don't need it. So
right.
Even at home, we probably have that drawer full of manuals for the oven and the dishwasher. And, you don't need those manuals. That stuff is online. So
right.
Get rid of it.
That's interesting. Yeah, for sure.
And we talked a lot about the inventory side of stuff. Now that we're talking about manuals and machinery, for example, how much did you spill into an asset management kind of role with all this? Because you're talking about disposing of actual physical equipment and stuff as well. So obviously, this is a little bit of asset management that went along with this cleanup.
Yeah, so it was definitely machines that were broken or no longer used. So it's not something that we would ever need. There was like binding machines, there was projectors, like those old-fashioned school projectors where you put the sheet on and it projects. So we do have a purchasing policy. So make sure you take a look at what your corporation has for policies. Ours is to, try and see if another department might use it. that projector that I was just talking about, our Parks and Rec department used it, took it on and uses it for day camps. So, you know, other departments might use that kind of stuff. Again, if you can't donate it to another department, talk to purchasing, because there's usually, you have to try and sell it to recoup the money before you actually say, hey, this is worthless and we can't get any money for it.
Right.
And it has to go into the bin to make space. The one thing that we had a lot of was binders. For some reason, nobody uses binders here anymore. So we had a room dedicated full of empty binders. So we approached the departments, nobody wanted it. So we tried to sell it. Nobody wanted to buy binders. So we approached some of the schools and we donated a lot of those binders to schools. They took whatever they needed, and you know, unfortunately, the rest we had to pitch. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Not to get you to talk about any skeletons in the closet, but obviously in projects like this, what was the most interesting, unexpected, or inappropriate items you may have come across? I think, you know, the one that always comes up is people's old rubber boots and boxes, or the local wildlife getting into the record center and things like that. So if you have anything like that?
not off the top of my head. Lot of Christmas decorations. For some reason, lots of Christmas decorations.
Yeah.
But there were some interesting items when we were doing the mayor's office and doing their cleanup. We got a sword, and I'm like, this is not a record. Why are we taking it on, right? But there was a lot of gifts that they no longer wanted to display, so we just had to find a space for those and document them, because there is historical value to those items.
Yeah. I guess, sorry, go ahead, Troy. I was just going to say, I was thinking about archives, on Ontario Archives. Do you have things that they would like to
They want Christmas decorations?
Yeah, maybe we have a lot of stuff. I know we tried to reach out to our local museum, but it's so small and underfunded that, you know, it's hard for them to take on a lot of knickknacks.
Right.
But yeah, I've never reached out. We're just storing them. Like the one thing that we have, I know, at our record center is moose antlers.
Okay.
I don't know why we have moose antlers, but we do, and hopefully one day we can figure out why we have them. Maybe it was a gift of some sort, but it'd be nice to free up that space because they take up a whole shelf. So
I going back to this Christmas decorations, Rick, I don't know if you remember this, but when we moved from our 2 offices ago, so this would have been about 8 up on 51st Street, when we moved from that office to Atrium, I took the Christmas tree and used it for about 3 or 4 years that we had in that office at home. Yeah.
There you go. There's always a use for something, Troy, you know, that's a good thing.
So another recommendation is, if you aren't moving locations like what we did, is maybe have those managers move offices. You know, they're so used to and relaxed in the office they're in. Tell them, hey, guess what? You're getting a new office next week and you have to move all your stuff. That'll get them going on cleaning up.
Yeah.
That's true. For sure. We had a suggestion for your antlers come in, Hubert. It was mounting the antlers on the record center wall. That was a suggestion.
Yeah, right. And you know, but it might have some historical value. We do have a large reserve next to Brantford that maybe it was a gift at one. I have no idea, but one day we'll figure it out once we find out the information. Yeah.
Good.
I think we're kind of coming to the end here, and hang the tassels on them too. There you go. I think I've kind of exhausted the questions I had there. Rick, do you have any other questions or want to wrap up?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say, Hubert, that I really thoroughly enjoyed the presentation. That there's a lot of really useful information, I think, in the slide deck as well, that everybody can kind of use in things going forward. So I really appreciate you having done this. It's always difficult doing you covered a lot of ground there in the presentation. So it does take some time to put all this together. So thank you very, very much for that. And
Yeah.
Quick question. Would you, I know you're gonna, we'll probably share the slide deck, but in there you had reference to that two-sided sheet. Do you maybe want to share that for people as an example as well? And I can have that posted with the rest of the material.
Yeah, sure. I can send that to you, Troy. Is that okay?
Yeah, send me what you'd like and I'll get it posted and we'll get that sent around to everybody that was at the webinar.
Yeah, when I was creating this presentation, I knew my audience.
Yeah.
So it's not people that deal with records every day. You know, these are managers, supervisors, workers. So you have to know your audience, and sometimes you have to make it simple enough for them to understand.
Right.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah. Now, this has been very, very useful. And again, just my thanks to all of you that attended today. And I'm looking at the attendee list, and of course, I know a lot of you personally. And I'll look forward to having you look me up at the conference in Toronto, as I will you, Hubert, as well.
Yep, I'll be there as well. So
you'll be there as well. So looking forward to it. And I'm really excited to see what the liaison group suggests for content for the new year coming up in 2023-24. I think it'll be really exciting to see our second year shape up of content for the ARMA chapters across Canada. So really excited about that too.
awesome.
Thanks, everybody. Long weekend coming up. Everybody, I'm sure will enjoy that tremendously. And I'll look forward to either seeing you at the conference, meeting you in the liaison meeting, or catching up with you in September when we start the new series off again. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.